Okay, I made this program about a number of years ago, and it's based actually on my daughter who helped me answer some things about the problems a beginning grower faces, especially on the mainland when they grow indoors. Okay, so this is my daughter, Laurie, my granddaughter, Sydney, and Sydney actually does half the watering. Okay, so it's true beginners. I would give her plants and she would kill them immediately. What saved the day is she started to use distilled water. Okay, she lives in San Jose. The water is very hard. So you can actually literally kill the orchids in 6 months. When she switched to distilled water and later to what is called reverse osmosis water, which is very pure like rainwater, she could grow plants indoors. And these plants are 3 years old. And they've been blooming in the windowsill, just like that, for 3 years. My granddaughter would add a little bit of water once a week or so. Sometimes not enough, and sometimes too much. But because it was pure water, the plants actually grew quite well. I was amazed. When I look inside the containers, there were no salt deposits. And some of the plants were beyond 3 years. There's the little stars in the middle. There's a bracteosum on the left and a bracteosum tannii on the right. And no care except for just a little water once in a while, pure water. So it made me a believer that take a better look at the water. It's the water, not all the other magical things we tried to do like fertilizing and fungiciding and pesticide sprays, but just water, pure water. And if you think about it, that's what orchids get in nature. Only pure water, very little fertilizer. So as you can see, she stuck the pot in the solid container and she just adds water. And the roots are happy and healthy, going everywhere. This plant is about a little over 2 years in her house. And if you notice, she never bothered to take the tape off. When I send it over, we take the media down so it doesn't fall out. So the plant is just growing on the tape also. And if you look on the sides of the pot, there are no salt deposits. If you look at the base on the green bowl, again, no salt deposits. Just pure water. So when I recommend, especially on the mainland, in Hawaii, there are very few people, if any, maybe no one grows indoors. But on the mainland, it's quite common. So they only use mostly rainwater or distilled water. And if you need a lot more, you use reverse osmosis water, which makes water that is as pure as distilled water or the rainwater. And of course, my daughter never fertilized. In all the years she grew orchids in the house, she never fertilized once. And the plants would bloom 3, sometimes 4 years in a row before they finally ran out of, I guess, gas. Okay, but for Hawaii, I still recommend things that I have kept constant. For those of you who don't want to write too fast, if you bring out your cell phone and just take pictures of these notes, then you don't have to write anything. Just take some pictures. So I still recommend the Island Supreme that you can get from any garden supply. My recommendation generally is 1 teaspoon per gallon per month, which is very little fertilizer. I'm finding even for myself, I tend to fertilize too much. There are times I give more in the summer months. And in the winter, it's rare that I even give 1 teaspoon per gallon per month. And the results have been very good. Oops. Okay, I also have as a constant what I call my secret potion. Okay, and the secret potion usually has to start 3 months before the plants actually flower. I use the same Island Supreme, and I add about 1 teaspoon, 1/2 teaspoon per gallon of the fertilizer and 1/8 teaspoon of the micronutrients. Okay, and the micronutrient is called Microplex. That's the easiest one to handle. Then I usually do it for about 3 months or until the plant actually starts to flower. And once the flowers start to open, you can stop. In other words, this is not for the whole year. Just you're gonna do it just before certain special plants are going to do something wonderful. And that's how you help them out. I've been doing it now for more than 10 years. I have quite a few people who've been practicing some of this and using the micros with the Island Supreme. I think Calvin Abbey is one of the people working on it, so maybe he could give some follow-up on it. Yeah, this is what the bag looks like. I get it from Simplot. It costs $45, I think, for 5 pounds. A hobbyist would take about 20 years to use it up. Unfortunately, they don't sell small amounts, but if you go on Amazon, they sell 1 pound containers for about $21. My recommendation has always been about 1 teaspoon per gallon every 2 weeks or as needed. You need very, very little of it. If you read the label, this is what it looks like. It's a little complicated. There are a few people who actually read this label and it can really throw you off. If you can see my arrow, it says ornamentals right here in the middle. They recommend using 1 teaspoon per gallon every 2 to 4 weeks. Okay, I'm recommending that you don't do that. That's far too much. Okay, so for ornamentals like orchids, what I'm recommending is 1/6 teaspoon every 2 weeks or more as the maximum use of the micronutrients. Okay, then you won't run into any trouble. So what are the results? Well, my mother-in-law in Hailei Maui grows no-bills. So she was complaining to me that her no-bills don't flower. And sure enough, I'm only there in New Year, but that's not when they're supposed to bloom. So they show me pictures in March and April when they're supposed to be in bloom. And in all of that picture, you're lucky if you saw 10 or 20 flowers. Not spikes now, 20 flowers in all of those plants. So when I'm there in New Year's, and because I can only give it 1 shot, I did give it a mega shot of the 13-2-13 and the micros at the rate that I don't recommend, which is the 1 teaspoon per gallon, which is really dangerous, but I shot it because I'm not going to come back. So in 1 shot, this is the result. So they took the picture and sent it to me. Even I couldn't believe the difference. Okay, so that's just 1 shot using the 13-2-13 with the micros. And I think I recommended it to Andrew. So Andrew, did you try it? The micros with the 13-2-13? Andrew is on Maui, Makawao. He lives just a mauka of my mother-in-law.
I don't know how to that.
But anyway, Andrew's been winning a lot of prizes, so he's looking for every edge he can get. What Andrew gets a lot of and I don't is rainwater. So about 10 years ago, after listening to Tanya Lamb from San Jose, who talked about using rainwater, she lives in a very dry area. So if she's going to go through that much trouble, I've been to her place 3 or 4 times. She grows beautiful orchids. So I decided to collect rainwater and put it to the test. With just a little bit of rainwater I could collect from one gutter, because that's all H&R has. I began to notice that, yes, things really were improving. The problem is I collected in 50-gallon container. I put it into a 250-gallon container, but I don't have enough rain in the summer months when I need it the most. Okay, so what I did was I got a very small, this is a very small 4-stage reverse osmosis unit, which makes pure water. So for every gallon it makes, it has to discard 3 gallons. Okay, but it's making pure water, which I can store in that 250-gallon container. I use a transfer pump to pump it out to water my plants. So I have to run it day and night. It turns out that I needed 400 gallons a day just for my critical area that I needed. So instead of buying 4 of these small units, I bought a bigger unit, and it's called a Hydrologic 1000. Okay, I found it on Amazon, and because the shipping costs with these things are really high, with Amazon Prime, I could bring the Hydrologic unit in for $680 with no freight charge. The freight charge would have been $200 or more. Okay, so this one makes me, I can make 1,000 gallons a day. If you do the math, that's almost 50 gallons an hour. So for most people, this is a bit much. But if you had a 50-gallon container and you started to fill it in 1 hour, you had 50 gallons, you can start pumping it out. Take a break, have breakfast. 1 hour later, you got another 50 gallons to shoot on your plants. Okay, so if you don't like waiting around for the water to be made, this unit actually is pretty good. It's designed for someone who uses about 50 gallons a day. So when I asked them, why do you recommend something that makes 50 gallons a day and call it a 1,000 gallon a day unit? And he said, well, if you run it continuously, it makes 1,000 gallons. But the filters, the membrane that's supposed to last 1 year, is the 1 year is based on 50 gallons a day. So I'm using 300 gallons a day. So I have to change my filters every 2 or 3 months. Okay, so that I don't go crazy trying to change my carbon and sediment filter. I bought this Hydrologic pre-filter, and it costs approximately $400 with freight. So the total investment is now up to $1,000. The important thing is that just with this unit, with $1,000 investment and approximately $1,300 in maintenance for buying the filters, I can also start to grow plants that are extremely valuable to me and are worth a lot of money. So I estimated the last 1 year using the reverse osmosis, 2018, 2019, rainwater, reverse osmosis water, the extra income we got, is over $50,000 with no extra work. So they invest the money investment on the unit is really good. That to cost ratio is in favor of buying it. So for hobbyists like Andrew, who wants to win all the trophies and don't give anyone any chance, this is the kind of thing he would invest in because he put a lot of money in his orchids. The Andrew may not have to buy it because his water on Maui is already very, very good. So he has an advantage over almost any other grower. And not only that, at 12 to 1400 feet where he lives, he has a natural sweet spot for growing orchids. So H&R at 21 feet in elevation can never compete with Andrew. Okay, so let me show you some simple things that I really wanted to test right away because they meant a lot. Many times we have plants in the flasks and we can't keep up with making community pots. So I saw Mike Blitz on Maui, Exotic Orchids of Maui, just throw his plants from flasks on this is the weed mat. The black thing you see down here is the ground cover weed mat. And he fits it to a tray and just takes the plants out of flasks and puts it on the tray. And he rarely gets any losses. When I tried to do it years ago, it was a slow kill. So I gave it up. But now that I have rainwater and reverse osmosis water, I had to give it a shot again. And sure enough, I can grow plants like this now very easily. So over time, this is what it looks like. And when the flasks are really crowded and we don't have time to get to them, we can just drop them on trays and stabilize them until we can get to them later. How much is it worth? Well, tens of thousands, because in the past, we couldn't get to them. We had to discard the flasks. And these are some really valuable things. Also, when I grew community pots in the peat pots, when they come out of flasks, they're very fragile, very soft. So we would miss the plants over and over again. And the results on certain types of plants, like Cattleya species, are really poor. I could never understand it, but I suspected it was the water. So this is where I directed a lot of my rainwater and later the reverse osmosis. Okay, so for example, I killed, unfortunately, I hate to think about it, but 500 compots of Cattleya dowiana, not plants now, community pots. I had people waiting for them. If I could make them, they would pay $100 a community pot. But when you kill all the community pots, except for a few plants, we could never sell the community pots, just a few plants. But those few plants were valuable enough that we kept redoing it. So last year, I planted approximately 300 of these types of Cattleya compots that we normally wave goodbye. But because of the oral water, we had 100%, recovery. They all grew. And not only that, they grow very fast, much faster than I had ever expected. And we sold most of them already. Okay, so like this kind of Cattleya dowiana community pot, there are growers who want them badly. And the transition from flasks to the outside is very difficult. With reverse osmosis, I get 100% yield. So it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that the reverse osmosis unit pays for itself very, very quickly. In fact, I can buy 10 more reverse osmosis units and still come out way ahead. In fact, I was asking Ian a while ago, how much did his unit cost? I'm interested in maybe even buying one like the one that Ian and Kate Leonard put in. But anyway.
$1.99.
What's that again?
$1.99.
Oh, okay, that's good. Better than mine. $1.99 for your reverse osmosis unit.
That's what he told me.
Must be a good friend. So you saved him from going to jail. But anyway, so I wanted to just show a few plants that the difference has been astronomical, whereas I could never put on roots on plants that were just growing in practically empty baskets. Okay, this is a cattleya species. And these are worth a lot of money. If I could grow some of these cattleya species, well, you know, they're $100 a plant. But when they look sad, I can't even sell them. Leafless orchids are all roots. Okay, it took a full year for the leafless orchids like the Dendrophylax finalis to turn around. The old roots that you can see down below is the normal roots I grew before. With the reverse osmosis water, you can see these nice big fat roots, and the plants are doing so much better, and they flower more regularly. Also, plants that I could barely flower now throw multiple spikes for me, and this is the Salii. It looks like the Lindinii, is that they're actually very closely related. The Lindinii is the famous ghost orchid from the Everglades. The main difference is that the Lindinii has a spur that goes up like this, and then will come back down another 5-6 inches. The spur is about 6, 7, 8 inches. It's amazing. The Salii just have a short 2-inch upswept spur, and it's because they have different pollinators. One of the plants that I grew well and then I killed, and then I grew well again and then I killed again. Not completely. I had enough that I could get a few seed pods and propagate it again. I could never understand why some years I had a green thumb. Then later it turned black and I killed everything. Thinking back, if I had been watching the rainfall for Waimanalo during periods of time when we had sufficient or lots of rain, I could grow. That's when I think I grew these species really well. During periods of high temperatures and drought, that's when I started to kill them. Okay, so with reverse osmosis water, I'm positive now I can consistently grow these really well. The other part of the program for beginners that is consistent is that Mike Blitz was demonstrating to me some plants that could not flower in the greenhouse. They drag it out, put it under the palm. Now this is Tokunaga plant that got thrown out of the greenhouse because it wouldn't flower well. They dragged it out, put it under the pump, no watering, there's no irrigation, no fertilizer. And he said after something like 2 years, the plant started to bloom unbelievably well. So they got a best in show with this plant. So you see the truck in the back down, it was about to go to the Maui show. Another plant Darryl Tanaka grew very well but could not flower was Dendrobium hibiki. And the story goes like this. He couldn't get a single flower on his plants, so he decided to use it and throw it outside and decorate the palms outside his house. That's where plants go when they don't flower. After 1 year, Mike told me, you got to take a look. They're starting to bloom. So this is after 1 year attached to a palm. So it gets about half a day full sunlight. So some of you may have gone to visit Exotic Orchids of Maui, Mike Blitz, and it's actually behind his greenhouse in Darryl Tanaka's yard. Then the following year, he told me, you know, it's growing, it's flowering even better attached to the palm. Then this is the second year now. So it's been without fertilizer. And of course, They never watered it. It's on its own. 2 years outside of the greenhouse. Then I go to third year and he says, you know, it's even better now. So I went back out and took a picture again. And sure enough, it was even better. But if you notice, there's no new growths. The plant is running out of gas. And in the fourth year, of course, less flowers. So for what I learned from this is that, of course, you don't want to starve the plants too long. 4 years might be a bit much. So in other words, why not fertilize every year and shape the plant like this? So for certain dendrobiums, bright light, less nitrogen. Okay, and on Maui, he gets a decent amount of water, rainfall. Something like Aiea Heights or Nuuanu or in Manoa. Okay, so it's not a completely dry area. When I tried to do this in Hawaii Kai, it didn't come out very good. Okay, so you have to have a fairly moderate area, not high rainfall, but moderate area. What I can grow very well is Brassavola nodosa. So this is growing in my backyard. So how I did this plant is that it's stuck to the bench and the roots go past the bench into the ground. The plant is more than 4 feet across, so that's why I never could show it again. But I get to enjoy it every year. So I use the Wubuchang watering where once in a while I do water very, very heavily. And this particular plant gets only 1 teaspoon of fertilizer every other month. Okay, so very little fertilizer. Another plant, due to the COVID problem, we started to shut down our greenhouses and we needed space. So I dragged one of my plants out and in January, I threw it in my front yard. So it gets 6-7 hours of full sunlight. This plant always blooms in July. So in April, I started giving it my secret potion, the 13-2-13 with the micros, and I was doing it once a week until it flowered. Okay, so the plant flowered, it flowered, I think, July 15th when most of the flowers are open, so it would have missed IESO. Okay, and it's not a record for me. It only has 46 spikes. The most I ever put on one of these plants is 60 something. So my neighbors did enjoy it. In fact, I thought maybe I should post it on HOS so that people can drive by if they want. So maybe next year. The plant is still doing fine. I'm going to try for 60 spikes next year. As long as I don't have to carry it, I'm going to continue growing it. So some new things that bloomed this year. I've been trying to get my namesake, Dendrobium Roy Tokunaga, to have some color in the front of the flower. So if you look at the picture where I am, the screensaver I'm using is one of the best. And I sibbed it several times now. So hopefully I won't see most of the plants, but hopefully somebody will bloom something really nice. The other thing is on Dendrobium Little Atro, I've been line breeding it to have more spots. So it almost looks diseased. So this is Dendrobium Little Atro. I continue to look and make hybrids with stripes. Okay, and to create a stripe with a clean white background was the goal. So one of the best is this Silver Wings by Nita. Okay, that's the end of the program. And I've always thought growing specimen plants was a lot of fun. And what held me back was, of course, I wasn't using water properly. Okay, so that's the end of the program. So we can go back to the regular screen. I have a few plants I can show you that are doing very well with the reverse osmosis.
If you have share screen turned on, you can turn the share screen off. There you go.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I have to get that virtual background out of there so I can show pictures. I realize that when there's a virtual background and I hold something, you don't see it. So earlier I showed some flowers that were dear to me. So I'll go back to the first one because it's one of the things that it was so frustrating. So this is Ceratocentrum phacelia. And I grew it in flasks. Literally, we had thousands of plants being produced, but we killed them all. So no one ever saw them. That was sad because a lot of people wanted them. And I showed this one earlier. This is the Arangus luteal alba. And the shape is really good. The original forms were not very good shape. It took me years to get this shape. So my only claim to fame is I killed more of these than anybody in the world, tens of thousands. And it turns out it was the water. So now I could never hang plants before. Okay, so if I would hang a plant on a piece of wood like this, it was a slow kill. So now I can grow them very well. And this is with the RO water. You can do it with rainwater. One of the things that a lot of people in Hawaii don't use that is probably the best resource that's free is the rainwater. In fact, the Department of Water Supply wants everyone to collect their rainwater. One of the species I really like them. This is Epidendrum centrodinium. And it never died, but it never looked good. But in the last year, they're starting to look really, really nice. And they're rooting amazingly well. I could barely get roots in the past. So this is all just water. So everything I'm going to show you is because I have more reverse osmosis water. I've always grown Dendrophylax funalis. So this is Dendrophylax funalis. And if you notice, there's no leaves, just roots. And they don't like to be in any kind of media. So just with the reverse osmosis water, I've been able to turn all of my plants around and they're really going to town with flowers. And they're producing lots. These are keikis and lots of keikis. So I can, propagate them really quickly now. It was a struggle before, but that's one of the things that the water really changed. Another plant we had a lot of and didn't do well with is the Cattleya walkeriana. So in the auction, there was a Cattleya nobiliar. That's also even more difficult to grow than the walkeriana. But I noticed the helo growers all grew them very well. Okay, and their secret is they use nothing but rainwater. And it also helps that if you're at 1,000 to 2,000 feet, I think Ben Oliveris is at 2,000 feet. And that temperature and the humidity he has and rainwater, that was the secret. Okay, so if you want to match him, just do those things. But now at 21 feet in elevation, I can finally grow what I consider a really nice looking walkerian with beautiful roots, nice thick fat roots, and the plants are actually growing faster. With reverse osmosis water, I notice I'm also getting significantly bigger flowers. I'm sure Kate Leonard knows that too. So, oh, can you? Okay, I had something up, but one of my other screens were up. So I'm sure Kate and Ian noticed that their flowers are bigger, and plants that were difficult to grow are now so much easier.
Hey, Roy, it's Tanya.
Time is up. Oh, Tanya.
Yeah,
Hi,
question. I could not bloom Cattleya walkeriana. I could bloom the hybrids, but not the species. So what else can I do? I use rainwater, as you know.
Using the micronutrients boost.
Rarely. I still have my first bag.
Have
I
you
will
tried
use
using it? So what you do is a couple of months before the season that they should be blooming. You know, like
Well, I don't know
October,
when it should bloom. It never
October,
bloomed.
November. They should be blooming October, November. Maximize the
Okay.
light. They can take it pretty cold. Maximize the light.
Yeah,
that
last year I left it outside until about December, but it cannot be in the 30s, can it?
that I don't know. I never heard of anyone
Yeah.
testing them
I
in the
didn't
30s.
want to take a chance, so I took it in December, and probably I can now. It's in the 40s. Yeah,
Yes,
I'll try
bright
that.
light. Yeah, bright light. The combination of bright light. I think you're already using a Michigan State type fertilizer, and then the
Yeah.
micros.
Okay.
I just gave it a boost during just before the blooming season. What it actually does is that covers all the bases on everything the plant would need for signaling, the hormones, everything. You've covered everything. So if you can then threaten them, if you don't bloom, I'm throwing you out. Or it can be like Daryl Tanaka behind Mike Blitz. Essentially, he said, okay, he attach it to the tree and, just ignores it after that. But
Okay.
yeah, one of the things I know my Walkerianas had trouble blooming when I gave them too much ammonia or urea type fertilizers. They prefer to stay in vegetative growth. So I'm not sure if you use any of those.
No, I don't. I use the 15-5-15, which is a similar to the Michigan
Yes,
State.
Yes, almost no ammonia, no
And-
urea. Yeah,
And
so
I
the
add a
micros,
little bit
yeah, the micros actually make a big difference. I was amazed because when I test something, it's not really scientific, but there's enough science in it where I will spray one bench or one area, and there'll be a control area not getting sprayed, and then I'll be going back and forth, checking them out to see if it really does work. And it's going to be an intuitive thing because I have all kinds of things in there and other things are happening. But as a group, using the micros fixed almost everything. Very few plants now I have trouble blooming. So one of the things I would quickly look at, of course, you need good roots. I'm assuming you have healthy roots, and the plants look good, and there's no other cause. Like if the plants have no roots, well, no flowers. But your roots are okay, right? I know all your plants look good.
I grow it in pot though. I don't mount. I cannot mount anything because it dry up too fast. We don't have the humidity.
Yes, I understand. For me too, I could never mount in Waimanalo because it was, in a sense, it's too dry. What happened is that all of the evaporation would occur literally on the roots. So any kind of salts you have will start to accumulate on the surface of the roots and very hard to leach out. Okay, that's where the water quality is so critical when you mount things or grow bandas. Okay, so I could never do this in the past. Okay, and so we had to grow these things in pots, but then you get the other extreme when it rains too much, then it rots out. Okay, so hopefully it's not too late. You can start shooting them right now. It's I still have Walkerianas blooming and Nobiliars, so it's still within the blooming season. But normally I start 2-3 months before they go into a blooming cycle, and then the rest is natural signals. But the plant I'm proudest of is actually my Corentum. I really love Corentum, but I could never grow it well. And then the roots, just to have nice roots like this is so important. It was so frustrating to have Corentum. They don't die. They just look terrible. Like, you can imagine a plant this size with only 2 tiny roots, and that's it. And the plant would be just struggling. So I could never put seed pods on them. I just needed them for the pollen to make some hybrids. Another plant that I'm sad to say I killed thousands was this is Dendrobium canaliculatum, the brown form, which is very tiny. See, it's a really tiny thing. A lot of people wanted it, but I just couldn't produce it. You know, literally 50 compots at a time would die. It makes me sad to think how many I killed. Of course, you know, I'm going after some of the most difficult because they command the best prices. But what good is a dead plant? You don't get anything for it. Okay, so the bottom line for a commercial firm is that the reverse osmosis investment I put in of $1,500 for the year has brought back many tens of thousands of extra income with no more labor. Not only that, many of the plants that were borderline are now really healthy. So I'm ready to start using more reverse osmosis and apply it for other things. So just to get the community pots to survive out of flask was a critical thing with the RO. Okay, so there's about 4 or 5 secrets I have with the transition from flask to community pots. But it's really hard when you start losing a lot randomly and you're not sure what's happening. So you're looking at all these other things that were so critical that you discovered over the years. Then finally you find the last piece and, wow, I can do this now consistently. I can go after the most difficult things and they all grow, but I'm about to retire. So H&R, unfortunately, is going to become a very tiny nursery soon. We're giving up the last big greenhouse that we have in June. So we're going to be down to maybe 7,000 square feet, I think. And how long we hang on, I'm not sure. But it's becoming more fun, actually, now that I can grow these, what I thought was almost impossible. You know, it was a mystery. All these things that I really loved and I couldn't grow. So for example, there were several species that are like this. It's called Orchidellas. They're epidendrums that they separated them out. Okay, so for people who, the one that I coveted the most is called Schumanianum. And it has a blue flower. And the plant is quite big. It's grown properly, it's about 4 feet tall. But it's just fantastic. It belongs to this section. The Centrodinium is a very small plant. I've had it since the 1980s. Okay, but never could grow it well. Tanya can grow it well, but I couldn't. Tanya had several other Orchidellas that were growing, in fact, outside her greenhouse in full sun.
Yeah, you should try Schweinterviana. That's
Yeah.
that's
But the Schumanianum was always my favorite.
yeah, that can get to 8 feet tall.
No, I never went beyond 4 feet. But the
Well, if you grow it in
yours-
full sun, it actually stay below 4 feet.
Oh, okay. But your plant goes 8 feet. I know that. I've seen it.
No, I grow it full sun, so it stay below. So that's the
Yes, but-
trick.
Yeah, I
You
saw
grow-
one, yeah, Andy's
Yeah.
orchids growing outside in full sun too, but his plant was 8 feet.
Yeah, he grows it a little shadier than mine.
Yeah, so I like miniatures because you can make more money with miniatures than big plants. So anyway, so actually in the last year, playing with my plants and finally getting to look at reverse osmosis, or if I ever did do these things again, I would make sure I get more rainwater. But the reverse osmosis actually solved the problem. So for those who want to know why it's so important, our city water right now is actually pretty good. It's running about 150 parts per million of dissolved salts, which is actually considered good water. It's good for human consumption. Okay, it's just that when you apply it to plants, it will leave a little bit of residue on the roots. Okay, so if I were to water this plant with city water, a tiny amount of residue would start to form on the plants, and they're very difficult to remove. The reverse osmosis water right now is mine is running at 10 parts per million. So if I were to wet my plants down 15 times, it would equal to 1 city watering. Okay, so you get an idea of that I can mist this plant down without worrying about the salts accumulating. So almost everyone on Oahu, or Maui, not as bad, but on Oahu, if you shoot some water on your windshield and you forget to wipe it off on your car windshield, and it dries and makes these water spots, there's not only a lot of water spots, when you try and take it off, it won't come off easily. It takes a lot of elbow grease. Okay, can you imagine all the salts that kind of like start to accumulate on your roots? So in Waimanalo, we're really dry in the summer, and I used to wet the plants down 3 times a day. But it takes about 6 months for the plants to look sad. And then in the 6 months, you wonder, what did I do in that 6 months? And it's a mystery. So when you go the opposite extreme and using pure water, you have to have faith and do it for 6 months to reverse what you had done with city water. So that's hard to spot too. So you have to have a certain amount of faith, but also I had seen enough from what Tanya did and other growers I've come across, and what's consistent is that they modified their watering to the water quality they have. So when I gave my talk, I think to Kunia, HOS, IAEA, I basically talked about the Wubuchang watering, and it's still good, where he would go with 3 passes as one watering. And then he would try and skip as many days as possible before he waters again. So this time of the year, he would be watering once a week at the most. If it rains a little, he skips another week. In the summer months, I think he told me every other day he had to do his watering. So it took him over an hour, one watering. He would go drink coffee or tea, go back out before the plants get dry and water again, and then take a break again, and then come back and water from a different direction. So it's important you don't come from the same direction. Otherwise, one side of the plant gets a lot of water, the other side, nothing. And then when finally he showed me how he watered his Dendrochilum filiforme, which was the best filiforme I've ever seen, is he doesn't water from on top. Okay, he waters from underneath. So with the sprinkler head, he's washing the undersides of the We just had a lightning hit really close, but the power didn't go off. Did you hear the wonderful lightning? Yeah, it was a lightning struck with lots of thunder. And the power didn't go off. Okay, so anyway, that's the end of the talk, and thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Any questions? Do we have time for questions, Brad?
Yes, we have a few more minutes for questions. If anyone has questions, please ask them now. You can unmute.
Quick question. Where to get the Miller's micronutrients? Because it's not on Amazon right now.
Oh, I checked a couple of months ago, and that's
Yeah.
where I saw the $21. Are you sure it's not on Amazon?
It says it's unavailable.
Ah,
Currently
That's what
I
I
guess
just,
I've been telling too many people.
yeah.
So you have to check. Even the I noticed that with the reverse osmosis unit that I did buy, the hydrologic, there were times it was unavailable. I just checked today and it was available, so I bought another one. But there are times it's not available on Amazon Prime. You can get it from Hydrologic itself, which I tried to do, but the freight cost was $250.
right.
So the freight can be quite expensive. So if you can get it from, so anyway, to answer your question, Tina, Simplot, I got it at Simplot. I think it's under about $50.
Okay, thank you.
And but you have to find a lot of friends to share it with because it's gonna last forever.
Okay.
We've done that with Kona Orchid Society on a big bag that's expensive. We've bought it and then divided it up.
Oh, that's good. But be sure to make a copy of the label.
Yeah.
And then include it and attach it to the bags because yes, in concentrate form it can be a little toxic. And you want to make sure it has a proper label. I worry about people breaking up something and into smaller portions, but not having it labeled properly.
Thank you.
So has the Kona Orchid Society been using it and any success, any luck?
We haven't used that. No, we've all bought your fertilizer in the past at Ace Hardware.
Oh, okay, the 13-213.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good fertilizer. Yeah, but I found that the orchids tend to need a little bit more of the micronutrients. Keep in mind, fertilizer companies put a generic amount in the fertilizer that's safe.
Oh, okay.
And if you're going to give more, it's now at your risk.
Right. Okay.
So I've been testing it really carefully, and I realized that it's pretty consistent that the orchids as a crop needs a little more. I've come across other people using it too, who have excellent orchids. So it was their secret, but I pried it out of them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes, we have a question about our vanilla orchid.
Yes.
The vanilla beans have little bumps all over them, and they didn't in the beginning. Can you tell me why that's happening and if it's still safe to process and eat?
I'm not sure what kind of bumps there are, but I'm sure it's okay because you're eating the inside.
The other question about my vanilla orchid is some of the ends are beginning to turn black. So I've been cutting them back and applying some cinnamon to it.
The end of what? The leaves?
Yes, the new sprouts, the new leaves.
Okay, the new leaves are turning kind of black. Usually it's almost always a calcium disorder.
Ooh.
So you would switch to make sure you have at least the 13-213 or the 15-5-15 fertilizer as part of your. A lot of times with vanilla, it's such a big plant. People give it a lot of ammonia-based fertilizer. ammonia, urea. I've seen people use manures. It really pushes the plant, but yeah, you could run the risk of also what we cause black tips is if you lose your roots. If you have no roots, you're going to have a calcium disorder.
Okay, thank you very much.
So how big is your plant?
It's probably 15 years old or
But how
more.
big is it?
It's really big. Yeah, it
10 feet?
is,
20 feet?
6 feet.
or
Oh.
more, but it's
Well, that's
all,
not too big.
but it's pretty thick.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a friend in Florida who was showing me his vanilla. He went up a palm tree 20 feet and it wouldn't make any beans. Of course, you can't pollinate it if it's 20 feet off the ground.
Exactly.
Eventually, it started to come back down. So when it came in reach, they could pollinate it and make beans. I didn't realize how big that thing actually gets. It's huge.
Okay,
So now I know
Roy,
why they trellis it.
Roy, we'll take one more question.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question for Calvin Abe. How are your plants doing?
Good. A lot of rain in Mililani. And I'm collecting rainwater and the sump pump.
Okay, and it works, right?
Absolutely.
Especially the summertime.
Yes.
Yeah, during the winter months, you don't have to worry too much about rainwater, but
I know. That's when summertime you need all the rain, but you don't have rain. But
yeah, that's why I have to switch to the reverse osmosis unit because I need a lot of water for the summer months.
Hello, Roy.
Okay.
If the
Right.
water is stored too long, is the efficacy of the water, does it diminish?
I've been storing my water pretty long. It's full of algae, especially the rainwater was starting to get a little rank. But as long as it didn't kill any of my orchids, I kept using it.
Okay.
There's always that danger that a pathogen could get into the water catchment, and it will show up as plants getting diseased too quickly. Then you may have to dump the water, clean the tank, and then start it up again. But I've had mine pretty dirty, and but the plants didn't seem to mind, so I just kept on going. The only thing I didn't like was that it kept having a lot of mosquito larvae in the tank.
oh, put some fish in it. It's okay. It's fertilize the orchid too.
Okay, next time I'll put fish in it. Actually, what I did was I put a couple of drops of mineral oil
Oh,
and formed a film on the top, and then so when they come up, they got zapped. That took care of the mosquitoes.
Okay, I want to go ahead and stop here. Thank you very much, Roy. It was a great talk. It's always good for us to be reminded why rainwater is so important, and maybe we get motivated towards making some positive changes, and then we can report to you our success. So thank you. So Mel, we are going to go ahead and resume the second half of our auction, but I want to thank again Roy Tokunaga for your great talk.